Hello, I am Ben, and it has been like 9 or 10 years since the last video on this channel. If you don't know, this channel used to make Seed of Andromeda. That died like 9 years ago when I kind of abandoned it for joining the AAA industry. But now, for the past 5 years, I've been making a new game in my spare time, and I even got married recently to Talia, and she is also a game developer and a talented artist in film. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so I've been working in film for about 6 or 7 years and switched to video games a couple years ago. I've worked on some good films and a lot more very bad films. So we're not going to name them, but we all know them when we see them. So I'm here to help the scope creep that I think happened on Seed of Andromeda and to bring my design skills to the table and my
painting pictures, making 3D models.
Yeah.
Animation,
VFX. Yeah. We all wear a lot of hats, okay? You have many hats as well. So
that's just kind of how it goes.
Yeah. So we're very excited and we're going to do a much better job this time around.
Yeah. And the team has already grown quite a bit. We have I think we have 7 people now. Most of them part-time right now. So to set the stage on what we're making a survival RPG in a procedural simulated open world with an emphasis on story generation.
Right. So we've designed the game such that you can go anywhere, and we have fully simulated NPCs that have complex AI that make them feel like they're living and breathing and remembering you. We're also having an emphasis on replayability. So anytime you launch the game, you've got a different history generation, you've got a different map, and it's going to be a completely different story every single time you play.
Yeah, we really want the player to feel like his actions have meaning in the world. So we're designing the game so that player actions can create sort of a cascade of events. If you choose to do something, the world should react. Things shouldn't just kind of spawn in randomly and respawn. No, things should be completely persistent. If you go to a town and you wipe it out, what's going to happen? Maybe some bandits are going to move in. Maybe another city's going to come take it over. And of course, we're also making this a multiplayer game because I've been an MMO developer my whole life, and it's just really important, I feel like. There's not a lot of games in this space that are multiplayer. You play RimWorld, you play Dwarf Fortress, you play games like this, they're all single player, but it can be done in multiplayer.
Right. And I think it's important nowadays because I think there's a massive gap in the market for games that you can play with your friends. At least good ones, in my opinion.
Yeah, friends, loved ones, etc., children. Of course, that makes it a lot harder, but, we're not shying away from a challenge here.
No, our purpose here is to create something great, not something easy.
Yeah, so it's going to take a long time. And the team isn't just us two. There are 3 industry professionals on the team, including us, and then we also have 3 sort of trainee intern type people, and we're all working part-time on this because we do have our actual day jobs. So let's jump in and take a first look at this. Obviously, there's going to be a caveat here that all of this stuff is temp. The UI you can see this is just IamGUI UI. We don't have real UI in yet. A lot of the assets you see are going to be replaced. A lot of the features are sort of still in a prototype phase. We just got past kind of the prototype phase on most of our main features, and we're moving into sort of pre-production for these kind of things. So just take that with a grain of salt. What I'm going to do here is start a debug template world. What this is doing is just grabbing an existing world's level data so I don't have to regenerate the whole terrain, but these are fully procedural worlds. Now I'm going to skip the history generation here. You'll see we have a whole world here, all these continents. It's actually a really massive world. If you ever played like Valheim, I think it's like 1.4 times bigger than the Valheim world. It's pretty big. Didn't want it to be infinite. Infinite worlds are actually, I feel, less interesting because remember, one of our caveats for this game is we really need you to feel like your actions have meaning. And if the world is infinite, you can't really affect meaningful change in an infinite world. There's just too much stuff out there.
It's also just too empty. I think a lot of procedural games tend to fall into this pit where it's just too open-ended and there's too much space between all the content and it just feels like dead. You need to kind of mediate with closing in your actual scale such that there's always something new on the horizon. And yeah,
exactly. So I've got a nice little river here I'm going to spawn by on this continent. I'm going to try to stay away from all of the magical blue and red things that we're not going to show you yet. There are features that we are just not ready to show because we want them to be more of a surprise, and there will be some features we don't want to show simply because we don't want people to steal our ideas.
Yeah, so we do have characters in already, but we're not going to be showing them quite yet.
Just yet. We might show a character, but not from the back because they are naked right now.
They currently do not have clothing.
Yes, do not have clothing. But here we are in the world. As you can see, it is a large procedural world with our own kind of painterly art style. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so essentially because we're designing a story generator, I wanted to pick an art style that resonated with that. So because story generators leave so much room to the audience to like fill in the blank and like imagine half of the story, I wanted to choose an art style that did the same. So we picked Impressionism and an impasto art style, which also speeds up production dramatically on the art side of things, because this is a 3D open world. So we had to, design things to be a little bit less time consuming where we could. But it's also just a beautiful style that I think hasn't been done yet and invites you in as the audience member.
Yeah, ignore the fact that the trees are spawning in the water, but
Yeah.
So like we said earlier, change is a big theme of this world. We have biomes, certain biomes that grow and sort of change over time. Not ready to show those yet. We also have cities that will grow with AI NPCs in them who construct buildings and chop down trees and all that stuff. Also not ready to show that just yet. We had an early prototype of that, but we're heavily in development on some multiplayer features, including AI distributed simulation stuff. So it's in a state where we're just not quite ready to show you. We are actually building our own game engine. We didn't want to use Unreal or Unity or anything like that. And we're kind of the mindset, it's really important in my opinion, that you build games, not engines. I'm sure you've heard that before. What that means is don't build a general purpose game engine that you're going to be able to use to make any game, because when you do that, you spend all of your time making that engine. What we're doing is we're making a game and an engine that are unified into one sort of thing. And what that allows us to do is develop engine features only when we need them and highly specialized to what we need. So it allows us to go really fast and build everything we need. And we're just pushing the game forward as fast as we can and not having to worry about how all these different people who are going to be shipping the game engine to are going to be using the tools.
Right. And there are certain complexities that making our own engine solves, like performance problems with having a ton of NPCs on screen that like Unity and Unreal would not necessarily be able to handle out of the box.
Yeah,
right?
like clearly we wouldn't be able to use Unreal's base actor system for this. Now they do have Mass Entity that could do some things like what we're doing, but really we want full, utter control over everything, over the memory layout of all of our data, of all of the systems, and this is what gets us that. And I've been making engines my whole life, so I'm very comfortable with this. It just really feels like the right thing to do. And to sort of show off another advantage of making our own engine is it's completely integrated with the game. Obviously, it'll be stripped when we ship builds, but I can just hit a button and it opens up all of the editor UI. I can switch back. I can freely modify assets here while running the game and see them sort of change in the game. Like we have our own particle system here inspired by Unreal's Nagar particle system, for example. We have a lot of just tools that we're building. I'mGUI makes it really easy to make these tools, so we can really make a lot of progress on making assets. We also have, like, for example, weather stuff. So we've spent a lot of time on finding the graphics, finding the art style of things, playing with a lot of prototypes of how kind of world systems will work. So if I go to weather, I can kind of crank up the snow. You can see the wind will kind of stop. The snow doesn't work on the faraway billboard trees. That needs to be added. But you can see, like if I come over here, it actually sort of packs on top of things. I'm sure you've seen this in other games, but
it's exciting. I like the snow.
Yeah, it's fun. Sliders are fun. I don't know. Just like there's something so innately satisfying about moving sliders and just seeing the world change. I don't know. The world generation still has a long way to go, but we do have a lot of interesting features. Like we have these rivers that get generated by sort of spawning water at mountains and then sort of pathfinding to the oceans. And we even have living, breathing fish that are swimming around in the water with procedural animation. We have a fishing mini game that I'm not ready to show yet. But there's going to be a lot of little things you can do to interact with the world that you would expect in sort of a survival game.
Yeah, and I'm kind of obsessed with the fishing side of this game. Don't ask me why.
She loves
there's
fishing.
Like 70 versions of fish that you can catch.
Planned anyway, so we have a long way to go to implement all that, but yeah.
Yeah.
So if all of this sounds crazy, it's because it is. But we're going to do it. It's going to take a while. We welcome you to join us on this. Please like and subscribe, obviously, so you can stay tuned for all the cool videos we send out. We're going to be talking about a lot of the development of this game and a bunch of other topics too. We're not just going to talk about this game on this channel. There's a lot of interesting things we can sort of talk about in the industry and just whatever we find interesting. And if you're really interested in the more technical aspects of the game development and engine development in general, or just general programming concepts, there is a Making Games with Ben channel that you can find in the description or on my main channel linked there that will go much more into detail about things. So please subscribe to that as well. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.